Good evening, guys. I'm Damien. Welcome to HSP Podcast. And tonight we're talking about the new Louisiana law requiring, it's a mandate, to put the Ten Commandments in every classroom in Louisiana. That's all the way from kindergarten all the way up through college if they receive state funds. Now, there's a few things that I can say about this. I know a lot of people are very, very happy about this. They think that this is a very good thing. My only issue with it, and listen, I'm a devout Christian, and I believe that the morality that we teach in Christianity should be pushed everywhere. And I believe that our schools have gotten very, very far away from God, so far away from God that our country's absolutely falling apart. But I also know that when you begin to mandate things, a mandate is never a good situation. When the government comes in and tells you what you've got to do, it's never a good situation. So what we've got now is we've got a mandate saying that they have to put the Ten Commandments in every classroom. Now, this could go one way or the other. What they do not have a mandate for is that the teachers who teach in those schools will begin to teach Christianity or teach the morality that's associated with Christianity. And I don't believe that they're actually putting this in there for to represent Christianity, right? I believe that what they're actually trying to say is that the Constitution, that America was built on the principles and the law that is contained within the Ten Commandments, and that I can agree with. But whenever you begin to mandate that, what you give those teachers who already hate God, they hate God, they're teaching the children to hate God, and what you've given them is an opportunity to point at that thing inside of their classroom and say, you see that? That's what they forced us to put in here. I believe that this can sow a whole lot of division where the unity of America is concerned. Because what they're going to do is say, look, I told you they were oppressing us, and there's proof of the oppression right there. That's what they're going to say. Right, and we're going to get into that whenever we look at my thoughts on this. We're gonna open that up in just a second. But I'll tell you something else, man. America is being pushed right now to division that is so far apart that I'm afraid of what's going to happen in November. I'll be honest with you. I mean, I know where I'm going no matter what happens. I know that, hell or high water, that I'm gonna be in heaven. I'm gonna be with Jesus Christ, and I know that. I know that with every piece of my being, right? But what's going to happen in November is about to be absolutely insane, in my opinion. I believe that it is going to get completely and totally out of hand because both sides are going completely crazy. I mean, and you know what? I understand from the conservative side because I myself am a conservative. I understand that conservatives are tired of being pushed around. But I think that now as conservatives, we're feeding into the frenzy that they've been trying to push us to. If you think for 1 second that they're not trying to push us to be angry, then you're wrong, right? And by them pushing us to be angry to the point where people are acting just like they act, right? They burn down cities. We don't burn down cities, right? But they want us to be angry to the point. And you know what? We have righteous indignation. This is the anger that we feel as Christians and as conservatives in America is righteous indignation. There's no doubt, man. They're doing things that they know is going to infuriate us, but it's because they want to infuriate us. They want this division. What they want is to tear the whole thing down and to start over, and they can do that very, very easily if we're at one another's throats all the time. That's the way that they do it. It's just how it works, okay? So while we think about that, think about what this is going to do by mandating the Ten Commandments to be in every single classroom. I don't think it's going to result in unity. I don't believe that people who are doing it for the right reasons. I'll be completely honest with you. I believe they're doing it for all the wrong reasons. I believe that they're doing it to further divide, to try to bring people more on their side. And the reality is, man, is when you start to bring God into these conflicts, man, it turns into a very bad thing. And mandates in and of themselves is just not a good thing. Because see, what you're doing is you're taking away the option. I believe what should happen is what Alabama did is they passed a law where it was okay, where they had the right to bring it into their classrooms if they wanted to. And I believe that's what we should do. I believe it should be a choice school by school, teacher by teacher, because what's going to happen is you're going to infuriate these teachers, and these teachers are going to further drag the children away from God by saying, look what they made us do. They're forcing this on us. And it's going to prove to be used as an oppressive tool. That's what they're going to say. This is what they're going to say. And there's no doubt about it. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. This is exactly what they are going to say. And I'm amazed that no one can see that. I saw on Facebook today when I was looking, and I saw all the posts about it, man. I said, man, look at these folks. And everyone was so happy. Yeah, you know, and I'm thinking, yeah, we all want Christ back in the schools, but we don't want to mandate it. We don't want to mandate it. Because when we mandate it, we're basically saying to everyone else, rather than coming to that person who doesn't believe in Christ in a loving manner and saying, hey, Jesus loves you, and this is what Jesus did for me, and he can do the same thing for you. Rather than coming to them to show them the benefits of being a Christian and, you know, the change in our lives as a result of that, what we're showing them is that you're going to do what we say whether you want to or not, right? You can't force someone to be a Christian, just like you can't force any of these teachers to begin to love God because you force them to put something that they hate in their classrooms. Man, that's a disaster. It's an absolute disaster. It's not a good idea, guys. It's not a good idea. So what I want to do first is I want to go into my research before we dig into some of these articles that I have lined up for this tonight. And I want to show you the Marxist idea of division and how they sow seeds of division through what they call oppression. Right? So they're already saying they're oppressed here and oppressed there. The simple fact of the matter is they can't point to real oppression. They can't. When you ask someone, what can I do that you can't do? They don't have an answer, and it leaves them bewildered. But whenever you force them to do something, now they can point at it and they can say, there's physical evidence right there that you are oppressing me and you're forcing me into your beliefs. And I don't think that this is a good idea, you guys. I just don't. If I'm wrong about that, hey, let me know in the comments. As a matter of fact, 601-589-3540, 601-589-3540. You can call into the show right now and let's discuss it, because I would really like to hear a perspective on it that doesn't sound, fanatical, right? Because I don't want, man, I don't even know how to say what I'm trying to say. I mean, I just don't see this being good for the country as a whole. Not mandating. Giving the right to, yes. Mandating, not a good idea, guys. It's just not a good idea. So to begin with tonight, I'm going to go ahead and give you what I think, okay? So let's go ahead and get to it. Bam. All right. I've also got to pull it up here because I've got it hidden underneath some stuff. Let's go down here. There we go. All right, so this recent legislative move in Louisiana mandates that all public school classrooms display the Ten Commandments. This directive has sparked significant debate, particularly concerning the implications of religious freedom and its potential uses by educators with different ideological perspectives. Right? So this is the Marxist critique. This is what the Marxists are going to say. This is exactly what they're going to say. So from a Marxist perspective, this mandate could be framed as an example of an ideological control by the ruling class. See, that's what Marx did. He said there's a ruling upper class who tells everyone else what to do, and then there's the proletariat or the people at the bottom who just have to do what they're told. They don't have freedom to think. They don't have, you do what the ruling upper class tells you to do, right? So that's how they've oppressed, that's how they've separated everyone so far. They use what's called intersectionality, right? So they take different little aspects of you and they break it down into intersections where, okay, like LGBTQ, right? Now, even in LGBTQ, you see a whole lot of intersections in that. Lesbian, bi, gay, you see all those, right? Those are all intersections, right? Then they use race. You use your race, whether you're white, whether you're black, whatever you are, right? And they separate you into those categories. Now, a lot of those categories will intersect, right? They might be a black trans woman or something of that nature, right? That's how they do it. But what they do is they convince them to turn against what they would call the ruling upper class. Well, I got news for you. Christians in America we have been deemed to be the ruling upper class. So they're going to use this specifically to say, look how the ruling upper class is oppressing us. That's exactly what they're going to say. And in this case, with the mandate, I mean, they can hold it to be true. There's no one who can say forcing someone to do something is giving them freedom of thought or freedom of expression or the freedom of religion, right? So this gives them something solid that they can point at and say, yeah, well, look, I told you that they've been doing this. You didn't believe me, but there it is. Now I can show you point blank, period. And that's where our true problems are going to come in. This is where our trouble is going to come in at, man, because the people who believe that ideology, they're not going to give in. They're not going to ever stop believing that ideology. And what they're going to do is they're going to attack. They're going to attack on every front. And if you think I'm crazy, you think I'm crazy. But it is what it is. So I had to find my little broom. I lost my little broom. But I mean, I understand that everyone has their own ideas of this and their own ideas of what they believe that this is going to do. But I would like to hear from you guys, and I would like to know what you guys think of it, you know. But the simple fact of the matter is I'm going to show you right here, right now, exactly what they're going to say. So this is what they're going to say. From a Marxist perspective, this mandate could be framed as an example of an ideological control by the ruling class, which Marxists argue uses religion to maintain its dominance. According to Marx, religion is the opium of the people, a tool that's designed to keep the proletariat or the underclass passive and obedient by promising rewards in the afterlife rather than material in this world right here. So what Marx would say is that we Christians teach that there's an afterlife so that the people at the bottom don't mind being at the bottom so bad, not bad enough to stand up against the ruling upper class, right? So he's going to use this right here to say that we are imposing our beliefs on another group of people. This is not a good thing for our country. It's just not. We don't need people to be able to point at us and honestly say that we are doing that. We don't. I think that we should have the freedom to put the Ten Commandments in the classroom if we want to. I believe that's a great idea. But you need to leave that up to them. You cannot start to mandate things and force people to do it, because you're going to have a whole lot of blowback from that. So here's the potential Marxist argument that I came up with. Marxist teachers could leverage this mandate to illustrate the state's imposition of a particular religious ideology that highlights the state's role in perpetuating certain power structures and societal norms. This imposition could be seen as an act of oppression where the state enforces a specific set of moral and religious beliefs, potentially marginalizing students of different or no religious backgrounds whatsoever. This forced display of the Ten Commandments could be used to argue that the state is prioritizing Christian morality, thereby alienating students from other religious and secular viewpoints. And that's kind of what I was getting at earlier, man. If I want to minister to a person, I need to be able to share with him what Christ has done for me, right? The freedom that I have in Christ, right? I need to show them that in Christ I have freedom. I cannot show him that in Christ I have freedom if I force him to hold my ideology. I can't do that. I can't say, hey, you've got to believe what I believe. I can't do that. And again, these teachers are not going to start being moral because we made them put the Ten Commandments in their classroom. In fact, they're going to be furious. In fact, they're going to tell children, this is exactly what they're doing. This is exactly what I told you they do. And this is exactly what they're doing. And I mean, if you got an argument for that, if someone can say, hey, you know what, Damien, you're wrong. This is going to be great. And show me how. Just show me how. Because I just don't see it. So it's going to have a major impact on intersectionality. The concept of intersectionality, which examines how various social identities interact to create different modes of discrimination and privilege, can be applied here. The mandate could foster a sense of division among students by religious identity. For instance, non-Christian students might feel isolated or suppressed, leading to a sense of collective identity among marginalized groups. This could create an us or them mentality where the non-Christian students band together against what they perceive as Christian dominance, thus furthering the Marxist critique that the ruling upper classes, they would call us, are imposing our beliefs on everyone else. That's exactly what they're going to say. If you don't know that that's what they're going to say, you're crazy. If you don't believe that that's what they're going to say, you are absolutely crazy. That's exactly what they're going to do, man. It's exactly what they're going to do. Why not sign a law that says they have the ability to if they want to? I believe praying should be allowed, not required, right? I don't believe they say you've got to pray every day. I believe that it should be allowed because that's what freedom of religion is. We should have a freedom of religion in this country, and we don't want that freedom of religion to be taken away by anyone, And you know what? It's very, very rare that I get on here and that I will criticize conservatives, but this is just not a good move. This is not a good move, and it's not a good look. It's not a good look. Everyone's saying that it's okay to force people to do something, man. That's wrong. What about when they told you had to wear a mask? Did you like that? No. We don't. No one likes to have things forced on them. No one wants to be told that you have to do something, man. No one does. No one does. I know I don't. I'm sure you don't. If you got another view, man, please, I see you guys watching, man, 601-589-3540. Give me a call. Mention something in the chat. Let's discuss this because, man, honestly, from my perspective, I just see this as a very bad idea. I just can't. I can't fathom a world in which it's okay to force anyone to do anything that they don't want to do, because that forcing people to do stuff they don't want to do does not lead to them loving you. It leads to them hating you. And it's very hard to get through to someone who you have actively imposed your will on. It's very hard. It's much better to talk to people, to show them the love of Christ, than it is to say you've got to do this or else. It's just not a good idea. Okay, practical classroom dynamics. In practical terms, while the teachers are required to display the Ten Commandments, they are not mandated to teach them as moral absolutes. Marxist educators could then use this as a teaching moment, emphasizing the compulsory nature of the display to critique the state's intervention in personal belief systems. This approach could encourage students to question the legitimacy and neutrality of state-imposed values, fostering a critical thinking and potentially leading students to challenge the established power structure. In conclusion, by highlighting the state's imposition of religious values, Marxist teachers could argue that this mandate exemplifies how dominant ideologies are enforced in the educational system. This could be used to illustrate broader themes of oppression and control, aligning with Marxist theory that such views and impositions as mechanisms of maintaining the state's, the status quo, right? So, I mean, it's very important that we really think this thing through. Before we jump on the bandwagon, guys, I think it's very important that we think this thing through. Now, do I think that they're doing it for religious reasons? No, I don't believe that at all. Not even in the least. In fact, I believe quite the opposite, to be completely honest with you. I believe they're doing it for the opposite of religious reasons. Now, I do see where the idea of the Ten Commandments, we know that the Ten Commandments and that God's law, God's moral law, his righteousness was one of the founding principles of this nation. And that is the context in which this should be viewed. But I will tell you this, most people aren't going to view it in that context. They're just not. They're not. They're going to view it as a major imposition of the ruling upper class, forcing people to do what they say. In essence, doing exactly what leftists have accused us of doing this whole time. I don't want to be guilty of that. I'll just be real with you. I don't. And I know I'm going to get a lot of blowback. I know there's going to be people who are mad at me about what I'm saying, man, but I'm just telling the truth. It's just the honest to God truth, man. If you see it a different way, please let me know, because for the life of me, I can't view it in a different way. It's the only way that I can see it is the division that it's going to cause. And they are waiting. They are literally waiting for this country to blow up in November, man. And this is just more gasoline to throw on that fire. It's gasoline, man. This is gas to throw on that fire. Just all around bad idea. So I want to look now at an article from WKMG, the Associated Press, from I believe it's Florida. I think it's from Orlando, as a matter of fact. And I just want to read over this. Let's switch that out, okay? So, new Louisiana law requiring classrooms to display the Ten Commandments turns old political conflicts. New Orleans, a bill signed into law this week makes Louisiana the only state to require the Ten Commandments be displayed in every classroom in public schools and colleges, and stirs long-running debates over the role of religion in government institutions. Under the new law, all public K-12 classrooms and state-funded universities will be required to display a poster-sized display of the Ten Commandments in large, easily readable font next year. Civil liberties groups plan lawsuits to block the law signed by Republican Governor Jeff Landry, saying it would unconstitutionally breach protections against government-imposed religion. We're going to be seeing Governor Landry in court, said Rachel Lancer, the president and CEO of Americans United for Separation of Church and State. State officials are stressing the history of the Ten Commandments, which the bill calls the foundational document for our state and national government. And that's absolutely the truth. It is a foundational document of our state and national government. It absolutely is. There's no doubt about that. It's no doubt about that. But that's not what they're going to turn it into. And just mandating it, I don't know, man. So, similar bills requiring the Ten Commandments be displayed in classrooms have been proposed in other states, state houses, including Texas, Oklahoma, and Utah. Reasonable and needed are unconstitutional and harmful. At Archbishop Shaw High School, a Catholic-run school in suburban New Orleans, the head school, the Reverend Steve Ryan, said he was pleased that the Ten Commandments will be posted on public school walls. These laws, which are part Judeo-Christian tradition, are good safeguards for society and are actually reasonable. And they are. They're perfect safeguards. In fact, they're the perfect law of God. I mean, there's no way that is not reasonable. I mean, this is what God said to do, right? These are God's laws. Right now, I will say this. The Ten Commandments are not, and y'all going to get mad at me again. Don't get mad at me again. But you're going to get mad at me again. But the simple fact of the matter is the Ten Commandments are not the operating principle for the Christian's life in the dispensation of the church age. It's not. The Spirit is. The Spirit gives life. The law kills, right? So the law was meant for you to try to adhere to a set of rules, whereas the Spirit changes your heart and changes your desires so that those traits become natural to you, not something that you're trying to hold yourself back from doing. So, in essence, the Ten Commandments gives you a life that's filled with a whole bunch of stuff I did not do, where by the Spirit, you live a life that's filled with the things that you can do. And there's a major difference in those two things. It's a major difference. A major difference in me not stealing because I don't want my hand to get chopped off, or I don't want to go to hell, or me not stealing because God has changed my heart from the inside and I no longer desire to steal. I no longer covet what my brother has or my sister has. I no longer want to go in and take what is not mine. There's a big difference. There's a big difference. In Baton Rouge, Attorney General Liz Murrill, a Republican ally of Landry, said she was looking forward to defending the law. And you see, that's something else he said. He said, I can't wait to get sued over this. I mean, why do you want conflict? I think that this could have been done so much more reasonably if we would have just adapted the Alabama style of it, where where you're allowed to pray in school, where you're allowed to show the Ten Commandments in school, where you're allowed to do those things, rather than saying that you can't, which is kind of where we're at now. And I will say this, I'm aggravated that they will force children to get into all this other stuff. I mean, no one, they're not out there saying, oh, well, you can't have the LGBTQ flag in the school, but at the same time, they're not saying that you have to. You see where I'm coming from? See, that's the weight scale, right? It's the teachers who choose to put that stuff in their classrooms, and it's their right, quote unquote, their right to do it. What I don't like is they don't have the right to also for a conservative and a Christian to put the 10 Commandments in there, or even to say let's pray or something like that. So when you look at it, the ideologies that they push are just as much religion, although they're, in my humble opinion, they're worshiping false gods, and they're worshiping at the altar of hedonism in many cases, but it has very religious overtones to it, right? And I mean, that's what we really got to pay attention to, is that all the things that they are doing have very highly religious overtones, but we cannot adapt pages from their playbook, because when you do what they do, you're just like them. When you do what they do, you're just like them. When there's no difference between the way that you deal with people and the way that unbelievers deal with people, then you're the same as an unbeliever. You know what I mean? So that's just kind of not the look that we want. I don't think so anyway, I mean, not in my opinion. I'm sure everyone has their own opinion about this stuff. I'm sure everyone has stuff that they want to, maybe discuss about it or talk about it. And I would very much love to have some of you guys, talk about it, man. We can discuss this anytime that you'd like. In fact, if you're listening on one of the non-video podcast spots that my podcast goes out to, hey, man, that number, 601-589-3540, give me a call anytime you want to. I won't answer it if I'm not in my studio, but I will see it next time that I open up the phone, and I'll call you. I'll give you a call. We'll talk about it, and I'll even bring you on the show to talk about it if that's something that you're interested in. So I very much want to hear from you. I very much want to hear from you on this issue, or any issue for that matter. So opponents of the law argue that eroding the constitutional barrier between religion and government is illegal and unfair. We're worried about public schools, families, and students in Louisiana, Lacer said. They come from a variety of different traditions and backgrounds, different religious beliefs, non-religious beliefs, and students in those classrooms will be made to feel like outsiders when they see the government endorsing one set of narrow religious beliefs over others. Louisiana's 2020 Teacher of the Year, Chris Dyer, echoed those fears and said he doesn't intend to post the 10 Commandments in his classroom. I don't believe in doing something that is unconstitutional and harmful to students. He said it's unclear whether there is a punishment for refusing to comply with the mandate. This law was praised by former Alabama Supreme Court Chief Justice Roy Moore, who was removed from office in 2003 after disobeying a federal judge's order to remove a 5,280 pound, oh my God, man. We're talking about 3 tons. I mean, this man had a 3 ton, amen, a 3 ton 10 Commandments in his classroom. And you know what? I feel like he should have the right to do that in his classroom. I just don't feel like you have the right to force everyone else to put it in theirs. That's the issue. That's the whole issue for me. I believe very strongly that morality needs to be taught in school because what they're teaching is hedonism. And that's just the honest to God truth about it, right? They're teaching hedonism in school. But this is not going to stop them from teaching hedonism. In fact, this is going to give them something to point at and say, look at the oppressors oppressing us. That's exactly what they're going to say, and that's exactly what they're going to do. And I mean, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. That's exactly what's going to happen. There's not any other way. That's exactly what's going to happen. So he wasn't removed from the building anyway. Nobody can make you believe in God. Government can't tell you that, but we must acknowledge that God upon which the nation is founded, Moore said. Members of the Islamic Society of North America and the Council on American Islamic Relations expressed concerns about the law. It is to highlight universal principles that everyone should embrace, or is it the intent to send a message to Muslim students and other religions that your religion is not welcome here? Now, only one understanding of religion is welcome here, said Edward Ahmed Mitchell, National Deputy Director of CARE. Mitchell said Muslims respect the Ten Commandments, which are largely reinforced by similar passages throughout the Quran and the teachings of the Prophet Muhammad, but he said the context is troubling for reasons including that the use of a Ten Commandments translation associated with evangelicals and other Protestants, blah, 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 blah. I mean, it doesn't matter the way that they're being read to me. I mean, that's not what I'm getting at all. That's not what I'm getting at all. I mean, I do sympathize, though, and I do understand where people from other religions are coming from on that. I mean, he don't want his children going to school where they feel like they're being pushed aside. I wouldn't want my kids to either, although we already do as Christians because Christianity has been pushed aside. But that, again, that's no reason for us to go and force things on anybody. It's not up to us to force things on anybody. We're not to force anything on anybody. That's not Christian. That's not Christian, man. It's not. In 1980, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that a similar Kentucky law violated the established clause in the U.S. Constitution, which says Congress can make no law respecting an establishment of religion. The High Court found that the law had no secular purpose, but rather served a plainly religious purpose. It is in most recent ruling on Ten Commandments displays, the Supreme Court held in 2005 that such displays in a pair of Kentucky courthouses violated the Constitution. At the same time, the court upheld the Ten Commandments marker on the grounds of the Texas State Capitol in Austin, which was a 5-4 decision, but the court's markup has changed with a 6-3 conservative majority now. But see, again, I am not in favor of forcing anyone to take it down either. Right? If those people want to have it there, they should be allowed to have it there. But if other people don't want to have it in there, then they shouldn't be forced to either. That's what freedom is, guys. That's what freedom is. We do not want to live in a country where you don't have freedom. And I don't care what side that's coming from. I don't care what side that is coming from, man. When you start taking away freedoms, man, it's a slippery slope. It's a slippery slope. The main difference in the two cases, at least according to the one swing vote, then Justice Stephen Breyer, was that the Kentucky County's officials demonstrated an unmistakable track record of religious motives in the posting, whereas the motives behind the Texas display were more on the borderline between religious and secular. Plus, Breyer said that the Texas monument had passed a test of time, standing among other monuments for decades without legal challenges. So, I mean, whenever we're digging into this, I mean, I'm hoping that you guys can kind of understand where I'm coming from with this. And I preach and I teach to a full-on Christian audience. And I love you guys. I mean, and I'll tell you what, I'm an absolute devout Christian. My whole life is lived for Christ. But I've never seen anywhere where Christ said, force this on anybody. In fact, Christ took us out from underneath the law. I don't know. I just don't think it's a good idea, man. I really don't. So let's switch over to the Alabama case. This goes on for a little bit too much longer. So I want to go ahead and switch over here. How does Alabama's law on the Ten Commandments compare to Louisiana's new law? Louisiana has passed a law requiring public schools classrooms display the Ten Commandments, a new development in a long-time public policy controversy that has surfaced in Alabama repeatedly over more than 2 decades. Alabama does not have the same law as the Louisiana law. Governor Jeff Landry signed into effect on Wednesday legislation that won praise from former Alabama Supreme Court Chief Justice Roy Moore, which we just saw, who has championed the Ten Commandments displayed during his political career. We got to get that off our screen there, buddy. All right, I don't know how I'm going to get it up there. Looks like it's stuck. All right, so it's not going to let us even read this one. I don't guess I ain't got it stuck. The amendment said public schools and public bodies can display the Ten Commandments on properties owned by the state. It added the qualifying language. This is it right here. The Ten Commandments shall be displayed in a manner that complies with constitutional requirements, including but not limited to being intermingled with historical or educational items or both, and largely in a larger displayed within or on property owned or administered by a public school or public body. So you see what they did there. And I just think that that's a far greater idea. I think it's a much better idea to work in that way than to try to force something on someone. It just, to me, it just doesn't make any sense to try to force it on somebody, right? I mean, it's not a good idea. It's just not. So, anyway, The View had a lot to say about this, and we're going to get to that in just a second. But first, I want to share something with you. I want to talk to you guys, man. If you wonder where I get the news and you see how I've got all the news stories up there, well, I do that with Ground News, right? Ground News is amazing, guys. So if you look on here, you can see where the ACLU to file a lawsuit against the Louisiana law requiring the Ten Commandments. But if you look down here, you can see where it shows the bias distribution. So I can see if it's left, if it's right, if it's center, and I can go over all of and you'll see this is where I got the news articles that we're using right now, right? These are all the articles that are written on this topic. And I can go through and see which ones are left-leaning, which ones are right-leaning, which ones are in the center. Now, me, for tonight, I chose center, straight down the center on both of them, right? Because I want this to be a center issue. I don't want this to be an issue where it deals with a whole bunch of separation of people, man. We are separated so often, and I don't believe that we should be using God to do it. I don't believe that we should be using God to push people away from Christ. I just don't. You know what I mean? But anyway, Ground News is absolutely amazing. If you're an avid news lover like I am, then you will love Ground News. I'm hoping that by next week, I will be able to offer you discounts on Ground News. But as it stands right now, you can just go to groundnews.com and just download it and get it. They've got some really, really good prices, man. It's like $100 for a whole year. It gives you the biases. It even shows you your own biases. It tracks what you're reading so that it can show you where your blind spot is and help you kind of level out the way that you see things, right? So anyway, with that being stated, let's move on to our next. So The View, Whoopi Goldberg in The View, they had a whole lot to say about this mandate. And they talked some straight noise. I mean, if you were watching in the very beginning, whenever I did the intro, on the intro, you see what she's saying, get out of my body, get out of my school. When she's saying about get out of my body, you know what she's talking about. She's talking about the issue of women's reproductive health. Let's say it that way so that YouTube don't kick me off the platform, right? But we all know what we're talking about. We all know what I'm talking about, right? So anyhow, I want to go ahead and just read over this article real quick and see. So The View co-host criticized the Louisiana law that required the Ten Commandments be displayed in classrooms across the state and took aim at Christians supporting former President Trump. And she does. And we're going to actually watch this. We're going to watch this and we're going to react to it. So you'll be able to see exactly what she says. Let's go ahead and switch over to that. Oh, man, come on. Are you kidding me? There we go. All right, that's what I was looking for. So we'll see what Whoopi has to say now.
Louisiana Governor Jeff Landry just made his state the first state to require all public schools to display the Ten Commandments in classrooms. Now, I
don't know if it'll hold or not. I believe that he'll probably be able to get that to stick. But whether you can get it to stick or not doesn't make it a great idea. That's that we're a Christian country. It's that we were founded on Christian principles, Judeo-Christian principles. And I'm going to do a whole show just on that. We're going to look at the New England Primer and the first school books that happened in America, the first school books that were used in America, and how they all were biblical, all of it. Every bit of it was biblical at that time. So it's not that we call ourselves a Christian country, but that the country was founded on Christian beliefs. And it was. I mean, all of this, even them having the freedom to believe whatever they want to believe here, where and in England and other places that wasn't the case at that time. Just like it's not that case in places like Pakistan and in Iran and places like that right now. They don't have religious freedom either. But that's why it's so important that we stand on these freedoms and that we not force our will on it. It's completely misrepresented everything right there. They're so stupid, man. These folks are stupid. That's the dumbest thing I've ever seen in my entire life, man. How dumb can you be? Uh-oh, what we got? Yeah, how dumb can you be? I'm going to end that. Actually, it's been a very rough night for the stream. And I think I'm just going to go ahead and call it in to my one person watching on Twitch. I appreciate you watching, and I hope you got something out of it. But for some reason, I just couldn't get it to go together very well tonight. So I'm still learning, and I'm doing the best that I can. I just really, really thank you guys for being here, man. And until I see y'all next time, man.